You think humans run this planet? Look closer. Beneath your feet lives an empire billion strong. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't hesitate. It doesn't forgive weakness. One ant is nothing. Blind, replaceable, almost brainless. But together, they build cities the size of nations, launch coordinated invasions, sacrifice themselves without fear. This isn't chaos. It's a system, a living network, a biological superorganism. And the mind isn't inside the ant. It's inside the colony. Let's go inside. Ants are among the most highly organized and ancient insects on the planet. Unlike termites, which are actually related to cockroaches, ants evolved from wasp-like ancestors. Today, there are between 1 and 10 quadrillion ants on Earth. That means roughly 1 million ants for every single human. Their total biomass is approximately equal to the combined weight of all people on the planet. Some scientific studies suggest that ants make up about 15 to 20% of the Earth's total animal biomass, exceeding the mass of all vertebrates combined. Ants live almost everywhere in the world. They are absent only from Greenland, Antarctica, and a few remote oceanic islands. No other group of insects reaches this level of population size or density. Ants form unbelievably large colonies. The largest known supercolony is estimated to cover around 6,000 square kilometers. It's so vast that it stretches across multiple countries, including Italy, France, and Spain. Quite a small anthill, home to more than 1 billion individuals. Now a bit about ant physiology, because sometimes it really feels like they're from another planet. Ants don't have traditional ears like humans. They hear by sensing vibrations. Their brains contain around 250,000 neurons, several times more than many other insects. And some large colonies, taken as a whole, can collectively contain about as many brain cells as an average human. Keep that in mind. We'll come back to it later. Ants typically have 2 stomachs. One is used for their own nourishment, while the other is meant for sharing food with other members of the colony. Within a colony, ants have clearly defined roles: builders, soldiers, and foragers responsible for finding and gathering food. If an ant idles without a clear purpose, it can be expelled from a colony. And interestingly, that rule applies even to the queen. Ants can remove a queen if she produces too little offspring, and then choose a new one. In reality, though, the diversity is staggering. There aren't 100 or 1,000 species of ants. There are more than 12,000 known species, differing in shape, color, size, and social organization. For example, in some ant species, there is no true queen at all. Every worker female is capable of reproducing. In other species, multiple queens live within the same nest. There are even species where entire marching armies consist of clones. They reproduce through cloning by a process known as parthenogenesis. Still, in most species, there is a queen. While the typical lifespan of a worker ant ranges from 30 to 90 days, a queen that successfully establishes a colony usually lives 5 to 6 years. Some, however, survive for 12, even 20 years. In the insect world, that's an absolute record. The relationships between different ants are so complex that humans could only envy them. For example, in an entire genus of Amazon ants, the workers are unable to feed themselves or care for their own nest. Instead, they raid the nests of smaller ant species and steal their larvae. The ants that hatch from those larvae will later care not for their own queen and soldiers, but for the colony that captured them. In other species, the situation goes even further. A queen can infiltrate a foreign colony, kill the resident queen, and be accepted by the workers as their own. They will then care for her and her offspring. After that, the original colony is doomed. From her eggs, only females capable of invading other species' nests will develop. And once all the original workers die, the colony will collapse. But these cases are more the exception than the rule. In general, most ant species are examples of altruism and self-sacrifice for the benefit of their superorganism, the colony. Regardless of their differences, which can be truly astonishing. Take the Sahara Desert, for example. Across its scorching sands race the silver ants, the fastest ants in the world. And it's no surprise, you can't stroll casually across burning sand. Survival demands speeds approaching 1 meter per second. That would be like a human running 2 100-meter sprints in a single second. But it's not just speed that keeps them alive. Their bodies are covered in specialized silvery hairs that reflect sunlight, protecting them from the extreme heat. And these are honeypot ants. Inside their swollen abdomens, they store reserves of sweet liquid that serve as a carbohydrate source for the colony during harsh seasons. Typically, these living honeypots are drained during the winter, when foraging no longer provides enough food to sustain the colony. In some regions, indigenous communities collect these sweet, nectar-filled ants as a traditional delicacy, and sometimes harvest them for sale. And these are leafcutter ants. All day long, they do nothing but slice leaves from trees. And they don't stop at leaves, they'll cut grass as well. The most surprising part? They don't eat any of this vegetation. In fact, they can't even digest it. So why do they need it? The answer might surprise you. These ants practice agriculture. They are farmers. They grow fungi and use the harvested leaves as fertilizer. The fungus feeds on the chewed plant material, grows, and that's what the ants actually eat. And here we have ants engaged in animal husbandry. They raise caterpillars, tending to them throughout their lives. In return, the caterpillars produce a sweet secretion that the ants feed on. Other livestock-keeping ant species farm aphids. As aphids feed, they release droplets of a sugary liquid, much like the caterpillars do. An ant simply approaches the aphid, taps it gently with its antennae, and receives the desired drop. And these, close relatives of the leafcutters, are Asian weaver ants. They pull leaves together and literally stitch them into place, using silk produced by their own larvae as thread. The result is a spherical nest of living green leaves hanging from the tree, surrounded by ants ready to bite anyone who dares cross into their territory. Weaver ants have long, powerful, and highly gripping legs. Thanks to this, they can form living bridges out of dozens or even hundreds of their own bodies, allowing the colony to move across gaps and reach other branches when necessary. Some species can even walk on water, and if that's not enough, they can survive floods by forming living rafts. This kind of living ark can endure weeks, even months, adrift. Some ants are eaten, others drown, but that's secondary. What truly matters is the survival of the queen. When fire ants reach a tree, they're saved. And to do that, they don't just build rafts, they construct living Eiffel Towers to climb to safety. And these are turtle ants, also known as cephalotes. The shape and size of their heads are dictated by the type of tunnel their species occupies. Some have flattened heads that resemble manhole covers. Others have nearly square-shaped heads, which they use like living plugs, sealing the entrance of their nest against unwanted intruders. One of the largest species is the bulldog ant, a species people prefer to avoid. The sting of certain members of this genus, such as the red bulldog ant, can cause intense and prolonged pain that may last for several days. In some cases, severe allergic reactions have been reported, including anaphylactic shock, which can be life-threatening for highly sensitive individuals. No less dangerous is the bullet ant, named for the powerful venom delivered by its exceptionally strong sting. Among local communities, it's often called the 24-hour ant, because after being stung, the unbearable pain and muscle spasms can last for about a full day. And then there are ants that don't even need to sting. When threatened, they can spray acid at their enemy, in this case, a crow. Perhaps some of the most unusual in terms of social structure are army ants. As their name suggests, they do not build permanent nests. Instead, they migrate in search of food, but in a highly organized formation. Along the sides march soldiers with massive, powerful jaws, several times larger than the workers. The workers form the main living stream, carrying food, eggs, and larvae as they move. They travel only during the day, and at night they establish a temporary bivouac by forming a living mass, a sphere of interlocked bodies, with the queen protected at the center. And these are Indian jumping ants. They can alter the size of their brains and ovaries to compete for the position of a fallen queen. And if they fail to move up the colony's hierarchy, their internal organs return to their original proportions. In most ant species, a colony dies after the queen's death, but the society of Indian jumping ants is functionally immortal. Within hours of the queen's death, a struggle for the throne begins. Ritualized duels can last for up to a month. During this time, certain workers activate their ovaries, causing them to increase up to 5-fold in size. At the same time, their brains shrink by about 20 to 25%. As the saying goes, you don't need much of a brain to lay eggs. These transformed workers become pseudo-queens, known as gamergates. Typically, there are 5 to 10 of them in a colony of about 100 individuals. Once capable of reproduction, they extend both the life of the colony and their own. Gamergates can live up to 5 years, while ordinary workers survive only about 6 months. The ability to completely transform during adulthood makes Indian jumping ants unique. But even more remarkable is that these physiological changes are reversible. If such gamergates are isolated from their colony, within a day or two they stop laying eggs and revert to behaving like typical members of their original caste. Ants also fight epidemics. They live in confined spaces with a high microbial load, and among those microbes are pathogens capable of wiping out an entire colony. To prevent that, they carefully maintain cleanliness inside their nests and regularly groom one another, as well as themselves. In recent years, scientists have discovered additional adaptations that help them combat infections. Some ants, for example, collect tree resin with antimicrobial properties and bring it back to the nest. Researchers refer to this behavior as collective medication. In addition, social insects produce antimicrobial substances, which they apply to surrounding surfaces and even to the bodies of other colony members. Grooming, it turns out, also serves a medical purpose. By cleaning one another, ants spread small amounts of pathogens. These tiny doses help stimulate the development of immunity. Black carpenter ants infected with pathogenic bacteria are even capable of developing immunity and passing it on to other members of the colony. Remarkably, infected ants transfer immunizing substances mouth to mouth before transmitting the actual infection, effectively preparing others for exposure. When researchers infected individual ants from 11 different colonies with a lethal fungus, the insects behaved in a strikingly intelligent way. As soon as the presence of a pathogen was detected, their interaction patterns changed. The colony split into subgroups that contacted each other less frequently than before. And it wasn't only the infected ants. Healthy individuals also reduced their social contacts. But their health is far from perfect. Some parasites seem to behave almost as intelligently as the colony itself, like something straight out of the alien movies. Normally, parasites shorten the lifespan of their insect hosts, exploiting their resources. However, a recent study by German biologists found that one species of tapeworm does the opposite. It actually increases the lifespan of worker ants. Ants serve as intermediate hosts for these tapeworms, while the parasite's ultimate target is woodpeckers. In Western Europe, worker ants become infected while still larvae. The parasites develop inside them into a larval stage known as cysticercoids. A single ant can carry 7 to 10 cysticercoids in its abdomen. Once inside the digestive system of a woodpecker, which feeds on ants, the cysticercoids mature into adult tapeworms. Infected ants tend to be less active and rarely leave the nest, while their healthy nestmates feed them, groom them, and even carry them around. As a result of this additional burden, uninfected ants in infected colonies appear to experience greater stress and die earlier. Biologists believe the parasites prolong the lives of their hosts to ensure that woodpeckers have enough time to consume them. After all, It's far easier for a bird to attack a nest filled with calm, infected ants than to search for a single forager in the grass. Many parasites skillfully manipulate their host behavior to increase their own chances of survival and reproduction. For example, certain species of Cordyceps fungi force infected ants to leave the colony, climb up a plant, and latch onto it with their jaws. After the insect dies, the fruiting body of the fungus grows out of its body. In essence, Cordyceps turns the ant into a vehicle, transporting itself to a location perfectly suited for spore development and dispersal. Still, calling fungi a separate form of intelligence would be a bold claim. But what about an anthill? Does it possess a mind? The complexity and diversity of a living organism's behavioral responses, its conditioned and unconditioned reflexes, are determined by the complexity of its nervous system. And the complexity of the nervous system, in turn, depends on the number of neurons, in our case, the nerve cells of the brain. It is only natural to assume that there is some minimal critical number of interacting neurons at which elements of intelligence begin to emerge. Such a critical number may exist within a single organism, or it may arise from several individuals with very simple brains, living together as what is known as a superorganism. When the individual brain of each member is too small to ensure survival on its own, some primitive species gain a form of collective intelligence buying into a community. An intelligence that, as we've seen in these examples, allows them to solve essential survival problems remarkably effectively. Of course, there appear to be limits. Otherwise, we might already be living on a planet ruled by intelligent insects. Neurons that are not compactly assembled within a single skull, but instead move independently on 6 legs, may not be the most successful path towards self-awareness and separation from nature. The ant superorganism can adapt perfectly to changing conditions. But to reshape those conditions, or to foresee them, for now, that remains a uniquely human ability.